Just say unbanned.
Unbanned.
Just search AFA Streaming or visit streaming.afa.net to sign up. Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on American Family Radio. Thanks for listening to AFR on this Monday, March the 25th, 2024. We hope you're having a good morning, wherever you may be listening to AFR. I'm Tim Wildman with Ed Battagliano. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, Brother Fred.
Hey there, Tim.
Fred Jackson. And of the day, JJ, you had a trip to Iowa this weekend, right?
I was in God's country, Mason City, Iowa, to do stand-up comedy at the door, so maybe 1,000 people there. And I love meeting our AFR listeners. And before it started, I was talking to people on the front row, and I've been without a mask. I'm so thankful for that. But I was deputy sheriff. She said she actually got saved listening to AFR, and that she knew nothing about the Bible, never been saying, thank you, please go back and tell the staff, thank you. And then a young man with people that said, and they'd come up and say, here's the deal. And I knew where they were going. Thank you for making me laugh, and we learned things. I feel like I get a little preview of Share-a-thon because people say, hey, my mom died. I was at the lowest point in my life. I got there from Mason City, Iowa.
Sounded like a tremendous night and a great fundraiser and good PR for you.
And got within a whisker of being stranded there. That'd be a good place to be stranded, but a massive snowstorm coming across that was going to, on the board there, canceled all the flights. And we sat out on the tarmac for an hour and a half while they de-iced all the planes. And we sat for an hour and a half. Within the visibility started to get almost zero minimums, and then I don't know how much snow they got. But, hey, yeah, again, wonderful weekend in Mason City, Iowa. We love our AFR.
Story before, but act like you haven't heard it if you've heard it. But I had to drive to Orange City, Iowa. So driving that interstate, I think it's the Minnesota-Iowa line there. But just rich. I was ready to see Charles Ingalls. You know what I'm saying?
Little House of the
And Laura come running across the field. It was
so a lot of Dutch folks.
It was a Dutch
right.
community, and everybody was banned. So you do stand-up comedy. You also do a more serious talk, so they can read about your
See Resource Center banquets, wild game dinners. 3 weeks I'll be in Salina, Kansas for a pregnancy resource.
in 2 weeks.
April the 18th, I think. I don't have the calendar in front of me.
The Farmer's Almanac says a blizzard.
I'm a snow lightning rod. So where I go, expect a snowstorm.
I'm glad my last name's not Van Vitagliano.
Oh, wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, the world traveler there, and a great ambassador for our ministry wherever he may. Where
I think most people probably could agree. How is it that former President Trump, the former president, is in New York? He has got 2 legal cases he has to deal with today. At the moment, a Democrat. Now, the hearing today is about delaying the start. Has to do with the prosecutors say he did as part of an effort to protect his 2016 campaign by burying. Several days ago, Alvin Bragg's office said, oops, we just found tens of thousands of documents, but they still want to give the Trump team only about 10 so that we can get through all of this. Bragg's office actually saying over the weekend, apparently, there's tens of thousands of documents happening there this morning. And then, today is the deadline put in place by the Attorney General to get a bond. And this, of course, is a totally separate case. This dealing with
about the judge. I'm not saying it. I know what you're saying.
Yes.
It's that's what you call him. Is that a conviction in a civil trial? Is that the proper terminology? Oh yeah.
$454 million.
Right.
The experts that you've been listening to over that, apparently the Trump people would like to say, we'll give you $100 million, because they have to post the kind of cash flow.
And the
But-
deadline is tonight at 11:59.
11:59, and there's talk about has headed out for Donald Trump even before she was elected.
It was part
She-
of her. She ran on that.
She
I get
ran
it.
on the going after Donald Trump. Cut one.
No one is above the law, including this illegitimate president. Suing him, defending your rights, and then going home.
I say one name, Donald Trump.
Cannot avoid justice in the great state of New York.
Yeah.
Sounds like she's an election denier.
Yeah.
My life heard a candidate for office, in this case, so that she wants individual's name as a target while running for office. I mean, that just
So she would not have had access to all the information regarding President Trump.
New York, I
Yeah,
guess.
it does.
Listen,
Sounds corrupt to
New
me.
York City is so flaming liberal. It's Republican voters, but just dominated by the millions and millions of people who live in the New York City metropolitan area, and that
The expertise of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to weigh in on the Trump case. Cut number 3.
Financial pressures that he is under, and what is in these assets, and the open window that exists in him trying to secure these funds through other.
I had some thoughts on what she had to say. Cut 4.
I have no idea what she was saying.
Not really
I don't think
either.
she
Yeah.
does. You know, trying to make sense of anything, nothing, and that is because she is hopelessly uninformed, terminally. No sane person takes AOC seriously, which I suppose is why she's always featured on CNN.
she's a quote
Yeah.
machine there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she's very influential amongst the Democratic Party. Part of what the media does, since the media is almost exclusively,
All right.
certainly the legacy the left wants to hear.
Let me ask you this, Fred. So tonight is the deadline
11:59 tonight.
for.
He's been paying over $100,000 a day interest.
Has he paid anything towards that?
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, is there any? Do you know? What did he do? Is what I'm asking
Well,
here.
and that's the problem. You have to post the bond in order to appeal. But
Okay, this is a catch-22. Okay, basically, but you're trying to do the authority tonight at midnight or whenever it is to start seizing his properties in. Maybe that's not the right word.
Well, she'd have to start the process of seizing his properties. Then those would be sold.
To make him pay the debt.
Separate process by which she has to apply, do something
Right.
legally.
In Florida from outside the state.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can't go after their property from outside the state.
She's going to try to. I think she'll try right away to seize.
Of a bad scenario, would Trump not do better to go ahead and is he gonna surrender the right to appeal because he doesn't pay the money tonight?
No. Listen, I don't know if he can get the money. Okay, that's it, and then go ahead with the appeals process, because if he does not, and Letitia James starts to seize his property, I don't think he gets that back.
If he's got the cash, he's got to do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I read where he's
of the money he needs to run his campaign. Now, to Ed's point about Letitia James, is she going to start going to see people
Here we go.
employed
Here we go.
within 10 days? All right.
Yes.
Okay, he has reprieve then.
He
Yes.
has. He'll pay that.
Yeah.
He'll pay that.
Yeah.
Probably because
Substantially.
this is an astronomical amount that has with the appeals.
I tell you what, I'd be getting out of New York so fast to make your head spin.
Mm-hmm.
As far as
But he would have the same plan if he tries to get out of New
yeah,
York
that's
now
true.
and sell.
After
People aren't
two-
going to pay full price.
Yes, after he was elected, and probably didn't know it would be this bad.
Right.
I would guess. But once she started, anyway, $5 million bond within 10 days. So he's given 10 more days, and the amount of money is a lot less.
Yeah.
I don't know what court, the Supreme Court of the state of New York, probably.
Well, he could go. I don't know. He could go to that appeals and then work his way up to the Supreme Court. It depends whether he wants to string this out past the election or not. I don't know.
Yeah. Next story, Fred.
Thank
Stop
you,
what
Judy.
you're doing.
Yes.
People, listen to me. Stop what you're doing right now and get ready to listen to this. This is
So the Democrats bring in this Olympic skier, Gus Schumacher. they classify him as a ex Louisiana. Challenge this young man on his climate change expertise. All right, it's going to
a gas.
Okay.
I'm not a professional to talk about exists in our atmosphere, and
What, is it the major part of our atmosphere? Or?
it's a huge part of our atmosphere. Yeah.
It's actually well, you say we need to reduce carbon dioxide emissions. I'd like to know first if you know what it is.
I don't have an answer.
You don't have any idea?
No.
You just think we ought to spend the money?
I'm not an economist.
If we spent, how much will it reduce world temperatures?
I don't have an answer for that.
You don't know?
No.
You just think we ought to
Call it that, between Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana and this poor soul who's is he an Olympian, as an expert at
Democrats?
Yeah, he was invited to discuss as an expert
whatever.
and what Senator John Kennedy did. And full disclosure, folks, this is Fred Jackson's favorite senator guy. And then just with that Louisiana drawl, just said, "I'm sorry, young man, your intestines are showing."
He's showing this video to his grandchildren.
You know.
Watch me. Watch this.
You know he called his parent.
In a couple of minutes. Stay with us.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
Death. That's a morbid subject, isn't it? It's certainly a subject that's usually discussed in a hush-hush tone. And for many, just to mention the possibility of it sends cold chills down their spine. But whether we want to talk about it or not, one thing is for certain. We all are going to have to face it. One reason we hesitate to discuss death in a proper fashion is the fact that we fear death, because it's unknown to us, because we've never experienced it, because we do not know what it's like. We are afraid of it. Fear, you see, is so often caused by ignorance. When we don't have some knowledge about something, then we have a tendency to be afraid of it. That's why some of us are glad that the carpenter came our way. He gave us some knowledge on the subject. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not knocking the way we speak of death or trying to belittle our efforts to pay respect. What I'm saying is that too often we fail to take a realistic look at death. We treat it as though it's a horrible thing, a monster, a dreaded experience. I wonder if the reason we treat it like that is because this is the way death appears to be to most of us. Maybe we've never stopped to think that the same Creator who gave us this beautiful thing that we call life is the same one who also made death a part of the plan. How is it that we can on one hand call one of his gifts a beautiful thing and in the very next breath say his other gift is awful? Does his nature change like that? We feel that he is indeed the same yesterday, today, forever. The problem is that we take his gifts without taking him. You see, we use life, live it to the fullest, without ever stopping to think where it comes from or who is responsible for it. Then one day, sometimes suddenly, we're face to face with the other gift of his, often unprepared for it, and we curse it. We have known, since we were old enough to understand, that everyone must die. But we've put off thinking about it, getting prepared for it, and it catches us unable to cope with it. Followers of the man of Galilee have a healthy attitude toward death, for they belong to the Creator. How was it that little Jewish tent maker said it? Whether we live or die then, we belong to the Lord. You know, it was faith like that led him to say, "As for me, the hour has come for me to be sacrificed. The time is here for me to leave this life. I have done my best in the race. I have run the full distance. I have kept the faith. And now the prize of victory is waiting for me." You know, I'd rather face it that way than cursing it. But then one cannot face it in that manner unless he's able to say those very same words. I guess that's the thing that scares us so.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. Psalm 27:4.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to today's issues here on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for joining us on AFR. Hope you had a nice weekend. I see where severe weather's rolling through the country. Do you guys see this?
Yeah.
I have not.
Yeah. Do you care? Do you care, Ed?
Honestly, only if it's coming my way.
It's all about you, isn't it, Ed?
I said honestly.
You did say honest.
If it's something up in the, I do have relatives like in the Northwest or Dallas, and that.
I have a good friend who's he's from Mississippi, and he moved to Wisconsin. So he just still doesn't like the cold weather, but it's a job, right? But they're fixing to get.
I'm looking now at the National Weather Service
to see if it's going to hit you.
Yeah, it looks like.
Anyway, we'll get a report from Ed tomorrow.
Folks, I hope you on my app, my local situation.
Yeah.
I don't usually go much beyond that.
Right. I understand. Yeah. On each afternoon and have for years and years is Washington Watch with Tony Perkins, who's president of the Family Research Council, FA and AFR as well, and other ministries. Tony, good morning to you.
Good morning, Tim. I'm here praying for Ed that he would have compassion for all people.
Tony, how's the weather looking in Baton Rouge?
If my hair's messed up, the wind's blowing.
I think Louisiana actually does get
a year.
Yeah, it's
a little
stunning.
bit more or less.
Depending on a hurricane, that could double that.
That's right, in a day's time.
All right, Tony.
Committee on the Weaponization of Government released a report that uncovered something that we had anticipated but did not have the institutions to comb through their financial transactions. And lo and behold, Church Council, Heritage, Eagle Forum, because these are groups that have been tagged by the Southern Poverty Law Center. So these are some of the largest financial institutions in the world, to comb through their expenditures. We've heard about this list, where if there were any transactions including religious materials, including Bibles, or...
When were they doing this?
Well, this happened after January the 6th. This is kind of in talking with some members of Congress, there's efforts afoot to try to limit the ability to hide, but that doesn't matter. This also could lead, Tim, this is why this is of concern.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this just provides fuel for the fire, where these institutions can say, well, be very dangerous.
Yeah, so folks, again, Tony simplified it, but I'll just say this. What we have, United States Treasury Department, which is mammoth, right? And they have a lot of power and control. Conservative organizations that they got the names from the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is a group, and then it was adopted. This list was adopted by the United States Treasury Department and then sent out to banks across America. Group is. And number 3, I've got many more numbers, but I can go as high as 3.
Don't take your shoes off.
Here we have the Treasury Department, a federal government agency, farming out.
Right.
So they're the ones who SPLC gets to decide. And I guess if you were to challenge the people at the Treasury Department, the definition, you need to do your own research so that you can defend your position. You see what I'm saying here? Not
expedition, just looking for something. That normally you have a crime, then I speak as a former police crime out of these organizations, looking for any transaction that would look suspicious, so that they could go back and see Mike Pompeo when January 6th occurred. I was in there, by the way, for the record, with a group of pastors praying for the Secretary of State, praying for really care that much about it. I mean, I'm an open book, but we have fundamental freedoms and rights actions to look for, try to build a case. And we're seeing how they're using this January 6th. They're still in breach of law and justice and order.
I'll tell you what.
They are trying to make something out of it.
Any means. We had the Discover card. They canceled us.
Right.
And
they would not process
SPLCs.
Because they're communists.
Right.
Well, you know.
I don't think
did they put us back on? I don't even know. Okay. Anyway, then overnight for us, they're a big company. They cut us off overnight. They cut us off overnight. Be able to process our credit cards, thank God, and we're okay now. But I'm just saying, if it's up to that's why when people say I don't really pay attention to politics. Okay, listen, I get it. Okay, but we can't stop trying to get the right people elected, especially to the House of Representatives and the Senate and the White House, because if we,
to your point, we wouldn't know this information.
Right.
If the Republicans did not have control of the House and created this committee, it will continue. The deep state will continue. So it's important, you know. And I've heard, you know, especially with what occurred, Democrats in control, and the House had very few options other than shutting government down or preserving, throw in the towel or wave a white flag, if you will.
We lose our freedoms.
We will. We conservative organizations, and don't think it stops with organizations. They go to individuals.
Yeah.
This is the stuff that once it's exposed.
Afternoon here on American Family Radio with the program Washington Watch from 4 to 5 o'clock Central. You hear Tony each afternoon.
Great concern of mine, Tony. I appreciate that.
All right.
All right, you guys have a great day.
Okay, thank you, Tony.
You know, bank and got this list from the federal government, I would look at it and I would say, listen, I don't want to deal with these. Cut them out. And then they would never tell the organizations that have been debanked, groups, quote unquote.
Yeah. Let me also say this, and Ed, you've stressed this a lot. One of the far left, the liberals in this country, is to shop local as much as possible, or with at least a regional company, if not a local bank, subject to the pressure of the left.
This major bank debanked our organization, but they don't care. They're so large, these banks. If
you know them,
right,
and they have values like you do, but for the most part,
yeah.
So, listen, I go to Walmart every once in a while too. You know, we all have to. We all do that. I'm not saying, merchants and people you know. You're listening to today's issues on the American Family Radio
show and other shows on American Family Radio. For this show, you can watch the live video stream on our own for today's issues. You can go to YouTube, search for today's issues live, or you can go to programs. We do encourage you to also download the AFR app on your phone or other portable device, and you can. I don't. I just have time for hockey, and that's it.
Yeah, and weather.
And
news is what, Fred?
Well, the breaking news is that the appellate division of the Supreme Court state fraud case in New York, that instead of having to pay $400 and actually $64 million, we talk about these numbers.
That would be pushing it for me, but I could probably manage that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the visa limit. But listen, guys. I've been reading other parts of this order that came out this morning, and I want you to
the one you just taught. You
include Alan Weisselberg and Jeffrey McConney, along with Trump's sons. There are other money from serving in the financial control function of any New York corporation or similar businesses entity. New York corporation for 3 years. Barring defendant Donald Trump and the corporate defendants from applying for law as an officer or director of any New York corporation in New York for 2 years.
I think originally, too, I think that Trump, all of his businesses are on probation. They have to report every so often
being an officer in a company operating in New York for 2 years? Is that basically what you're saying?
Be out of it. They cannot be involved.
Wow. That's I wonder how that's going to work. Who is talking about Trump and his whole family?
Yeah.
They'll be kicked out. They would basically be kicked out of New York.
Yes. Yes, it does. Barring defendant Donald J. Trump and the corporate defendants from applying for loans, serving as an officer or director of any New York corporation for 3 years.
Yeah. All right. Well,
You have to keep reminding people, this was a case of no victims. This was a case they couldn't bring in the banks. It's what corporations do all the time when they're applying for loans. The bank said we were good with this. Yes.
I want to know the answer to this question once and for all. Maybe in the business fraud case in New York, or not.
Well, my understanding is his attorney could have checked off that says we could or do request a jury trial, and so they no longer had that option.
Okay, as a non-lawyer, can I make a comment about that?
Yeah.
Being ignorant myself of the positives or negatives of that, I'm just saying, serious, instead of leaving your livelihood in the hands of one judge, I'm having a hard time buying that it was a mistake. That is a mistake of monumental proportion. I'm sorry. We meant to check jury trial. It was a misunderstanding or a mistake I made.
A jury trial, if checking the box means you have that option, but not checking it means you don't have that option.
I mean, that's what
I don't know what else. That's what Jenna said. What else could it be? Why would Trump and his attorneys percentage down in a criminal case? You have to get a unanimous verdict one way or the other, or at least a handful of jurists or jury members that you're not guilty.
Plus the amount of people say in New York you can't do that. You can't have a jury trial for a civil case like that. I don't know, but we'll ask Jenna again. Get her own. Checks all the boxes.
That's right.
All right, you're listening to today's issues on American Family Radio. All right, ladies and gentlemen, he's going to join us live from Israel after the news. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
American Family Association, a ministry with a mission to inform, equip, and activate people like you to strengthen the moral foundations of American culture and to give aid to the church here and abroad in her task of fulfilling the Great Commission. We couldn't do it without your day-to-day support. American Family Association. Find us online at afa.net.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. President Trump's bond in that civil fraud trial case in New York has been reduced from $454 million to $175 million. A court has ordered that he has 10 days to pay the reduced bond. New York Attorney General Letitia James made no secret that she would start seizing Trump's assets, but Outkick host Clay Travis says that's not going to happen, and this will not turn out well for Democrats.
No doubt. And it's also important to recognize that Letitia James and Alvin Bragg as well can be doing what's smart for them politically in New York City and in New York State. I think both of those guys and gals would like to be governor. They would like to be senator one day. Yeah. That might redound to their benefit in that state. But this, I think, is really blowing up in Democrats' face nationwide when it comes to swing voters in those swing states. Trump is up in virtually every poll out there, and every time they come after him with a new legal tactic, Harris, his poll numbers go up. And I think that's because the vast majority of Americans may not like Trump and agree with everything that he says, but they also don't think that we should try to bankrupt our political rivals and put them in prison for the rest of our lives, which is exactly what the Democrat establishment is doing.
Fulton County, Georgia DA Fonnie Willis says she's not embarrassed by her near disqualification in the Trump election case and remains defiant.
I don't feel like my reputation needs to be reclaimed. Let's say it for the record. I'm not embarrassed by anything I've done. I guess my greatest crime is I had a relationship with a man. I don't feel like we've been slowed down at all. I do think that there are efforts to slow down this train, but the train is coming.
But Ashley Merchant, the attorney who initiated the effort to remove Willis, says that's okay. They're ready for the train.
That was a little surprising. I think I would be embarrassed if I had an affair with a married man and it was on national TV. But, hey, that's okay. I understand the train is coming. We're ready. We will be ready whenever the case goes to trial. Hopeful that it doesn't interfere with everything else that's going on in the world. But we're ready when the case comes forward.
Right.
Ms. Willis has charged this case extremely overbroad. And so no trial is going to happen and be resolved before the election. So what they're looking at is actually having someone running for office, running for the office of president, being on trial. That's unheard of.
The climate alarmists say we're not doing enough to curb so-called global warming. Robert Thornton has more.
The World Meteorological Organization said there is a high probability that 2024 will be another record hot year. They cite record increases last year in greenhouse gases, land and water temperatures, and melting of glaciers and sea ice. Cal Beister is founder and national spokesman for the Cornwall Alliance.
They're saying that the 12-month period from March of 2023 to February of 2024 pushed beyond the 1.5 degree limit, meaning we don't want to go more than 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial temperatures, averaging 1.56 degrees Celsius higher. That's 0.06 of a degree. That is well within the margin of error.
He said the margin of error applies to any of the global temperature monitoring systems, including the only one that's reliable, the satellite system.
We really don't know that that's been, that this new record has been set. We think maybe it has, but that's 0.06 of a degree. Whom does that impact? Absolutely nobody.
I'm Robert Thornton.
Congress is looking to pass a new bill to go after credit card processing fees. Grady Trimble has more.
These swipe fees are paid by businesses every time customers make a purchase with a credit card, and they can be as much as 3% of a purchase. This bipartisan bill is aimed at reducing those fees. Democratic Senator Dick Durbin partnered with Republican Senator Roger Marshall. They argue there's basically a duopoly of credit card companies, Visa and MasterCard. Marshall says the bill would force competition, help small businesses, and ultimately lower prices. Opponents say it'll have the same impact as another piece of legislation Durbin got behind after the financial crisis. It was aimed at reducing debit card fees, and it did, but it also led to the end of debit cards rewards programs.
More news online at afn.net and the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty Pugh.
So the commercial begins with, "Do you want to know a secret? More than just my armpit stink." The ad then draws attention to the area below the waist using everywhere for emphasis, which should be sufficient, but the crudity continues. More could be said, but not here or now, so please visit 1millionmoms.com, inform yourself, and sign our petition urging Secret Whole Body Deodorant to cancel these crude ads. Then ask friends and family to do the same. 1millionmoms.com.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, president of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. I was going to say good morning, but it is still morning in the Central Time Zone and westward here in the U.S. of A. Folks listening in the Eastern Time Zone are noon now. Hey, just real quickly, we got something affecting us here locally. Tomorrow evening, Shreve from Texarkana, Arkansas, from His Heart Ministries will be in town, and they're going to be here to, if you're a pastor and your wife, whatever, you want to come to, well, not whatever. You got multiple wives. You
can't come.
You need to look for another dinner. But this is tomorrow evening. Jeff Shreve will be here. Drive an hour or two and be here with us tomorrow evening. We'd love to have you. We have a few seats available left for this event. Here, okay, afa.net/events to register. You need to go on their registers and their wives. So we'd love to have you. If we got, wanted to mention that because we got a few seats available. Jeff and Debbie Shreve from. Do you know when I
straddling the fence?
Alice and I, we've stopped there before going to Dallas.
Yeah.
And we've ate at the restaurant. There's a restaurant chain called On the Border.
Ah.
Yeah. And so you see the irony there?
I do.
You seeing it even to this day?
Sometimes I run for the border.
And the fajita was awesome. What now? Sometimes Family Radio Network. Tim, Ed, and Chris Woodward. Good morning, brother Chris.
Good morning. Sometimes I'll look at salt.
All right, so listen, a lot of news coming out of Israel. We've been paying attention to that for 100 Israeli citizens lost their life.
That was October 7th.
That butchery took place. Good morning to you.
Good morning. It's good to be with you from Israel. I am situated, so it's just great to be here in the land.
What time is it in Israel?
It is 6 o'clock in the evening. Almost time. I do, and I had an opportunity to visit family here this time, but you know, for me, this trip, guys, God has really blessed this trip. It's one of the most special trips that I've ever had in coming to the land of Israel. You know, I've been here 30 plus times, and I know.
Have clips of, you have something you want to share with us?
I don't have any clips on my computer. I know that Chris does, but okay.
So do you know who this is?
Yeah, it's what's the lady's name featured in your story today? The security expert
on border. Sarit Zahavi is a former lieutenant colonel. She was an intelligence officer in the IDF, and she runs the Alma Research and Education Center. And I have to tell you that because she's a security expert in that area, and I learned so much just being there, with her and learning and interviewing her, which I'll.
He's heard Hamas. That is a terrorist organization operating out of Gaza. Hamas. Hezbollah orders. Hezbollah is supported by Iran, okay, directly. Some would say Hamas is too, but that just some context of who Hezbollah is that might come up in this interview. How long is this?
It's about 33 seconds.
All right, go.
Arms that have independent capabilities now, but eventually they are connected to the brain. And the brain, which is Tehran, is Hamas, and they see that Sinwar is still alive. They see the criticism against Israel around the globe, and they are encouraged by that.
For Alma, a security, informational, educational team there in northern Israel. About that, Tim, we did have a chance to see a few things here in the land of Israel, and I went up to the Mount of Beatitudes, where I know that you've been many, many times, the Mount of Beatitudes, everything. And he said, usually we get about 100 buses a day this time of the year. 5 buses. He saw buses there. There's a lot of Israelis and a lot of local people that are going to all of these places, but tourism is dead.
Future date unknown, for the very reasons you're talking about. And a lot of people, the Israeli trip, a lot of the hotels in Israel have been filled with Israeli citizens. Has been a problem for those kinds of reasons. A lot of stress put on the. Go ahead, Ed.
Hey, John. We're looking at stories now that are saying, and I guess this is put aside and allowed the UN Security Council to pass a resolution calling for can veto a resolution like this, and frequently does when they want to. But instead, the U.S. decided to council. Now, Israel is not bound by this. They don't have to declare a ceasefire, but this is additional. And so you have the President of the United States of the Biden administration, Washington delegation visit. They were supposed to come to this country to talk things out with the Biden administration, but because of actions and pressures on Israel coming from the U.S., and I am extremely disappointed.
Go ahead. Yeah, I'm glad you asked me that question because I've talked to a lot of people here in Israel, and they're very concerned about the relationship between Israel and the United States at a lower level than it is right now. In fact, it seems like the United States is saying, well, if you don't do what we say you should do, we're not going to give you any weapons.
Right.
And I spoke to one security expert